Well, during the 2016 election, you may remember, Republicans promised their voters they would defund Planned Parenthood if they were given power. Well, voters gave them power, but the party never delivered. In fact, never really mentioned it again. Whatever happened to that promise? Well, Planned Parenthood is still around and still getting hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars every year. 2017 was an especially great year for Planned Parenthood by their grotesque measurements. The organization committed 332,000 abortions. That's 11,000 more than the year before. They also took in just under $564 million in tax dollars. That's 20 million more than 2016, in case you're keeping track, and we are. Tammy Bruce is a radio host and president of Independent Women's Voice, and obviously one of our favorite guests. So, Tammy, what I think is interesting about this is not only did the Republicans in Congress not do what they promised to do when they ran, but actually the problem they described got worse. So how did that happen?
Yeah, you know, this is what is fascinating to people and why there's been a general revolt, I think, within the Republican Party. They hear promises for years, almost patronizing attitudes, placating the masses on the issues that matter to us. And, you know, it's not even whether or not you're pro-choice or pro-life. This is about the allocation of hundreds of millions of tax dollars. As an example, the L.A. Teachers went on strike because they argued they don't have enough money for enough teachers, for the library, for textbooks, and yet hundreds of millions of dollars in corporate welfare for Planned Parenthood. And I'll give you an example of why it's corporate welfare. In 2015, a revenue over expenses profit, $77 million. In 2016, profit, $98 million. And then in 2017, a whopping $244.8 million profit of revenue over expenses in the same year that you note that we gave them more taxpayer dollars. So this is about the use of our taxpayer money, but also on an issue where there is not agreement in the United States, where abortions are not something that Americans think. I don't think, for me, this is about keeping Americans, keeping government out of our lives, out of our medical care, right?
Right.
But at the same time, it's the 21st century, and that the power of saying no is the important dynamic here when it comes to making choices about what informs the future of our lives. And look, so it's across the board. People, women, no matter what your position, should be appalled at this kind of money being used. But then at the same time, you've got a ruling in Texas that has lifted an injunction from the state of Texas where they want to pull back some of the money that the state gives them. And now they're going to be able to do that because of questionable practices in the Planned Parenthood there in Texas. And all women deserve, no matter who is giving you medical care or any other medical health care framework, we deserve to be told the truth about what's happening. We deserve honesty. We deserve companies that actually follow state and federal law. Everyone should want more from every medical provider. And in this particular case, when you're looking at the kind of profit we're dealing with, Planned Parenthood doesn't need federal funds to exist, but they use it to say, well, this is, we need this to exist, and then it becomes a political argument. It becomes their way to get out the vote politically.
It's a campaign arm of the Democratic Party. Is the NRA going to get $500 million in taxpayer? We've been trying to book Paul Ryan on this show. I'd be interested to ask, what did you do for 2 years? Do you remember the promise that you made? He's busy, I guess. Tammy, thanks so much. It's great to see you.
He was busy not repealing or replacing Obamacare. We know that, too.
That's true. He had a lot on his plate.
A lot, yeah, he was very busy.
Pretty good.
Thank you, Tucker.
Thank you, Tammy. Well, the movement against abortion has some reasons for optimism. Last Friday, the same day as the March for Life, you just heard Tammy mention it, a federal appeals court lifted a lower court's order that blocked Texas from kicking Planned Parenthood off Medicaid. Texas's efforts were prompted by undercover videos showing how Planned Parenthood harvested fetal tissue for profit. That's not creepy or anything. David Daleiden is the founder of the Center for Medical Progress, which produced those videos, and he joins us tonight. David, thank you very much for coming on. What I find so interesting about this story, and the reason I think no one ever wants to talk about it, is that you could be for legal abortion and still look at this and think, well, that's like the most grotesque thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, it's horrific. At Planned Parenthood, it's abortion first, abortion always, and capitalizing on their abortion program no matter what. So as you've just heard your previous guest talk about, not only is Planned Parenthood raking in more taxpayer money than ever before in their latest annual report, bringing in more money from private donations than ever before, and also doing more abortions and making more money off of their abortion program than ever before. And as the videos that I did with the Center for Medical Progress show, and the federal appeals court from the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals has now determined definitively that the undercover videos show that Planned Parenthood resorts to criminal abortion methods to harvest more marketable body parts from their abortions. And this is something that's horrifying to normal everyday Americans. It's something that treats their patients as if they're just harvesting pods or a cash crop for Planned Parenthood. And it's something that's against federal law, and that Planned Parenthood is still under active federal investigation by the DOJ on account of. So there's no reason.
So what does that mean? I mean, it looks to me like you just caught him flat out doing that. It's dehumanizing.
Yeah, I agree.
It's grotesque. Nobody wants to live in a country where that happens. It's also illegal. You can't sell organs. Why has no one been indicted for this? I'm sincerely confused.
Yeah, well, you know, it is really interesting. So far, at the very least, there were 2 very good congressional investigations done, multiple criminal referrals that went to state and local and federal law enforcement. So far, at least in Southern California, the district attorney in Southern California did bring an initial case against 2 of Planned Parenthood's business partners in Southern California. That was for the first successful prosecution of a node of their baby parts trafficking network. It resulted in a $7.8 million settlement, shutting the companies down, and they admitted guilt for selling body parts for profit that they harvested at the local Planned Parenthood. So now everybody's waiting for the U.S. Department of Justice to do their job and hold Planned Parenthood accountable to the law, the same as any other organization, the same that we would expect for any other organization that's in violation of federal law, which is something that, again, a federal appeals court has now looked at the evidence and said this is probable cause that this is going on.
This isn't even the argument over Roe v. Wade, or even over abortion itself. And you would think that Republicans in the Congress, if they actually paid attention, could win this debate, because who's for that? Who could possibly be for that?
Yeah, not a lot of people are for it, and certainly the people who are for it don't want to say publicly and don't want to proudly get on your show and say that they're for it. But
by the way, they're welcome. Anyone who's for this, I can barely even describe it. It's so repulsive. But if you're for that, you always have a spot on my show. I'd love to hear why you're for that. David, thank you.
Thank you
for doing important and deeply unpopular work.